Hello and a very warm welcome to our sewer sector guidance training. Following Sean Robinson's communication, you'll be aware of a new piece of legislation that's in place relating to the adoption of sewer assets by water companies and applying to all new housing developments. It's a hugely exciting step forward with regards to the clarity of legislation and the connection it gives to Polypipe, both with regards to our new sewer campaign coming in 2021 and our GU offering. It should fundamentally be taken in conjunction with the Sewer Sector Guidance Key Points document issued by Sean Norris earlier in the year. And a big thank you to Sean for reading through all 214 pages and condensing it for us. Cheers, Sean. As well as our design guide, which gives you the detail that you need with regards to effective and efficient design. Today's training is aimed at giving you the so what and giving you the knowledge and confidence, I hope, to start conversations and push on the vast opportunities it can bring to all of us. It's brought to you by me, Vicky Woodhouse, and I'll talk you through what it is and what it means to the sector, and also Charlotte Markey, who will expand on the SUDS element and how we fit. So let's go right back to the beginning and start off with BSSG, before sewer sector guidance. For years, water companies have been the owners and operators of the UK's sewage networks, and in turn, house builders have chosen to have these assets transferred over to the local sewage and water undertaker. This is known as the Section 104, and once the technical approval has been granted and the system installed, it's then taken over for adoption by said water company, where they then become the owners and operators of the new network for the development's lifetime. SERS for adoption was the benchmark for developers and designers with regards to putting forward technical submissions, with regards to design, methods and the products utilised. However, as SERS for adoption was only guidance and not legislation, each water company took various versions and added their own amendments. It caused a lot of confusion. It also didn't allow for consideration to other requirements, such as the National Planning Framework or the Floods and Water Management Act of 2010. SSG looks to bridge this gap. So top line changes. As I said, it replaces the SERS for adoption regime for all new agreements under a Section 104 of the Water Industry Act 1991 between a developer and an English water company. And it's applicable to all new housing developments where the developer is looking to pass the surface water management over to the water company for adoption, i.e. under said Section 104. It's mandatory. All English water companies must comply, and I've got real life examples of speaking with water companies such as Anglian et al, telling me that on schemes, if it's sewer sector guidance, they must do it. It brings in one set of rules. It brings in the requirements of the Floods and Water Management Act, again of 2010, to embed SUDS being sustainable urban drainage systems, into projects, where previously water companies have focused on traditional sewer systems, such as pipe and hard engineering structures. With this new legislation, however, developments are not only required to manage surface water and flood risk, but they're also asked to provide benefits including enhancing amenity value of an area by creating green spaces. Again, something Polypipe has been speaking about for some while with our GU message. And as I said, sewer sector guidance is only relating to England. But that said, it doesn't leave out our friends in Wales and Scotland, and it doesn't contradict. In fact, it nestles nicely next to Wales and Scotland and what they've been doing for some time. As you can see, Wales and Scotland link to different documents, legislation. And this is because, again, as I said, back in with the Floods and Water Management Act in 2010, there was a requirement to provide a comprehensive approach to surface waters and to have a SAB being a SUDS approval body, which were established within county councils and were there to have two main roles: SUDS evaluation and approval and SUDS adoption and maintenance. This wasn't implemented in England and there was a lot of noise about it with county councils, but it's very much the foundation in Wales, where they are already using SUDs and SABs and collaborating between stakeholders, and it's very much already in operation. Scotland too have been ahead for some time with SSG Scotland and have already been embracing the management of surface water through the use of SUDs. Fundamentally, SSG effectively allows England to catch up and puts English water companies in the role of SABs, which our local councils and authorities weren't and couldn't do. The other complication with regards to housing developments and things that should be noted is the number of stakeholders involved right through from conception to completion of a new housing development, and it's absolutely vast. With this, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, it can be complex with regards to design of the surface water management system. Each one of these people has a key role in determining the surface water management arrangements on new developments. This includes all aspects of the new drainage system, including both above and below ground features. And unsurprisingly, they can clash. Not everyone talks to each other. They certainly don't tend to work together, and there's a lack of understanding as but this was due to previous legislations not being succinct and synchronised. So, quick headline with regards to what it is that each one of these will have an involvement in is you've got the local planning authority who will link with the national planning framework, local policies, and any supplementary planning documents. The lead local flood authority who give guidance to the LPA. The Environment Agency, the EA, as a statutory consultee to the LPA in some areas. There's also an internal drainage board who regulate any work carried in or around the proximity to non-main rivers or ordinary watercourses. You've got the Highways Authority, will assess, approve and adopt highway drainage features that only serve the highway. This could include SUDS techniques. Then you've got the Water Company, who will assess proposals from drainage systems on new and redevelopment, where the developer applies to have the SERS adopted, 104 again. They will only adopt the sewers that take the surface water from properties and their land drainage and highway drainage features are not usually adoptable by the Water Company. Then you've got the designers and developers who have to submit all these designs and proposals to all of the above. So it's hardly surprising that everybody got confused. Each one of them have different drivers, different wants, different legislations, and all need to be pulled together and work in harmony. What SSG does is tries again to bridge that gap and start to unify and define the roles and responsibilities of each one of these where it was previously grey areas. This all fits in quite nicely with Polypipe's ideology. Richard Blakesley will be proud. Through the very essence of our project, and account management, we always aim to bring these things together. I've stolen this slide from WSP, but I think it quite nicely demonstrates that previous slide with all the complexity of people in a nice bit of imagery. So water management with SERS for adoption 6 or 7 had maybe 3 bodies involved, causing confusion with regards to ownership and designs and solutions that would be accepted. The Water Company would dictate the adopted sewers and the methods used, the highway drain, the local authority, and then maybe the 1 in 100 in a different solution by either private or, again, a local authority. What SERS for Adoption 8 will help to do is to give clarity, simplification and ownership, and in turn bring other things such as fewer simplified pipe networks, more certainty on who's adopting what and how, and a better SUDS solution. That's all the background as to what it is and why it came about. So let's move on to the actual design element that's highlighted in SSG. And the biggest changes are really in regards to the surface water, which, great, that's our sweet spot. I'll go through the changes to the principles that we're already familiar with, adoptable engineered solutions. But where developers and designers are going to really need some help and assistance because they're not familiar with it is the inclusion of SUDs, what that means and how they do it. So with great pleasure, I'll hand over to my illustrious colleague, Charlotte Markey.
Hello, everyone. So when we look at conventional SUDs, we see that water is sometimes treated in a very simplistic way, sometimes even as an inconvenience. But what the new sewer sector guidance is here to achieve, and what we try to do at Polypipe, is to incorporate holistic water management within green infrastructure assets, whether it be tree pits or rain gardens, etc., many of which will be now adoptable in the new guidance. And the idea of this, quite simply, is that we can collect, separate, clean, attenuate, release and reuse as appropriate, and these will all be adoptable now, and there'll be a much easier way to work with stakeholders to make this sort of change happen. And as we'll see in some of our later slides, there are opportunities not only for volumetric resilience, by which I mean managing large amounts of surface water, but also to use other technologies such as passive irrigation to extend the lifespan of that green asset in a smart way. And when we talk about resilience, there's kind of two forms we can think about, really. Is it resilience in terms of the status quo, or is it resilience in terms of for the future and for betterment? And I think what this guidance really does, and also, again, with the help of the biodiversity net gain legislation, is to think about leaving places better than we found them. So a resilience with a real future outlook. Next slide, please, Vic. It's not transitioning for me. Oh, brilliant. So also, we need to discharge and think about the hierarchy of water on a site. And what we really want, and the holy grail, is obviously infiltration, but the worst case scenario is putting all that water into a combined sewer. So what we want to do is look at this guidance and think about how we can help clients to achieve their goals and aims and objectives, and using source control SUDs so that all that water isn't going to expensive end of pipe solutions. Next slide, please. So what are SUDs? Obviously, this is probably a bit basic for some of you who have been with us a long time, but I don't think it hurts to go over some of these. So SUDs are drainage systems that are considered to be environmentally beneficial, causing minimal or no long-term detrimental damage, often regarded as a sequence of management practices, control structures and strategies. And the minimalisation of pollution and managing the impact on water quality is also something we can and should be offering as part of our range of solutions. And again, looking at the design guide, we can see how the Polypipe design guide, we can see how all of this should fit together. And if we look at the schematic on this slide, we can see that we're not just looking at quantity. Obviously, this guidance does focus on using a range of components to manage runoff and manage quantities of water at an acceptable rate. However, we mustn't ignore or overlook the quality of the water we're dealing with, our ability to add amenity to a site and to incorporate biodiversity. And the idea of us using our solutions to work with SUDs is that we can mimic nature and manage rainfall close to where it falls. This enables us to convey surface water, slow runoff, and work with natural contours and work with the vegetation and options for natural treatment. This is all possible on any given scheme. Next slide, please. So we're just going to play the short video, and this will hopefully give you an overview of the real philosophy behind this approach. So Vicky, if you'll just play the video for everybody. So again, thanks, Vicky. So again, looking at that video and then looking at the design guide and the SSG manual from Syria, we can see that a lot of these components work together and in tandem to create a holistic solution. And indeed, much of the new sewer sector guidance refers to sections of Syria guidance in the SSG manual. So really, alongside this training, it's really good to have a look at the Syria guidance, particularly around the design of each component from the SSG manual. Next slide, please. So adoptable SSG methods. Some of the solutions we offer will not be adoptable, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but some really nice, attractive and basic features that you'll often find on a number of developments are now adoptable. So for example, swales and rills. A swale being a shallow vegetated channel designed to convey and retain water, but may also permit infiltration. Now, infiltration rates are really important on any site. So what we'll see is that a number of SSG components are often chosen to work around that specific topography and the infiltration rates on a particular scheme. A rill, on the other hand, is a small, shallow line channel through which surface water can flow. In our design guide, our polypipe design guide, you'll see how we can optimise swales and filter drains, and there'll be a little bit about that later on in this slide deck. But infiltration trenches and filter drains are usually filled with a permeable granular material designed to promote infiltration of surface water to the ground. A filter drain, on the other hand, is a linear drain consisting of a trench filled with a permeable material, normally with a perforated pipe in the base of the trench to assist drainage. Next slide, please. Bioretention systems and basins. Now, this is very interesting because a number of different components can fall into this sort of all-catch term of bioretention system. But really, what a bioretention system is there to do to allow runoff to ponds temporarily before filtering through vegetation and underlying soil prior to collection or infiltration. Now, a bioretention system, and we'll see a lot more about this as we go forward, could take the form of a tree pit or a rain garden. And indeed, the soil specification that we offer our clients, and soil is the absolute pinnacle of a successful SSG scheme, will have a direct impact on the attenuation capacity, the treatment capacity, and indeed the general efficacy of a SSG component. And in the Syria guidance, you will see that there is quite a lot of reference to soil alongside some of the different components that they list. A basin is a depression in the ground that is normally dry, but it is designed to store surface water before infiltration and to provide attenuation. So that's the difference between an infiltration and a detention basin. Ponds and wetlands. Now, a pond is a permanently wet depression designed to temporarily store surface water runoff above the permanent pool. And a wetland is a type of pond with a high proportion of shallow zones that promote the growth of bottom-rooted plants. Now, the interesting thing around wetlands is there's been a lot of development since the 1950s around what we call constructed wetlands, whereby these could come in concrete encasement, or they're there that you can install them. They're modular systems pre-planted with different technologies inside them that can be integrated alongside linear assets or in a public realm. So there are actually small modular wetlands that are now available on the market, one of which Polypipe has now embarked upon. So do ask the specification team around some of the new innovations around modular wetlands that we're now offering to clients and specifiers. Next slide, please. Soakaways. You'll all know about soakaways and the use of some of our solutions within those soakaways. And Vicky will talk to you a little bit more about the tank solutions and how Polystore fits into the guidance. But in general terms, the basic concept of a soakaway as an adoptable SSG method is a subsurface structure for the temporary storage of water before it soaks into the ground. And previously, water companies only adopted conveyance and attenuation. Next slide, please. And obviously, there are references to proprietary treatment systems both within the sewer sector guidance and the Syria guidance. And I'm happy to say that most of the members of the Syria board and those who are part of what I would call the SSG community, so experts in this field, will all know of the polypipe solutions and treatments that can be part of private drainage or street drainage as appropriate, and the solutions that we offer. Next slide, please. So, SSGs will be considered an adoptable component if constructed for the drainage of buildings or yards, apparent to buildings. They have a channel or depression between banks or ridges with a definite boundary, and importantly, convey flow to a sewer, surface water body or groundwater. And really importantly, there is an agreed discharge point as previous and right to discharge secured. Next slide, please. Not considered adoptable are watercourses, unsurprisingly. Components built primarily for the drainage of surface water from streets or drainage of land, components built to manage groundwater, components which are part of the structure of a building, so a green roof or a pervious driveway. But that's not to say, and we'll talk about this a bit later, that things like green and blue roofs, pervious driveways should not be integrated as part of a holistic design solution. We can have a mixture of adoptable and non-adoptable methods on a site that really can demonstrate best practice. And rainwater harvesting is also not adoptable. Next slide, please. So enhanced SSGs, will they or won't they be adopted? Now, this is an interesting question. So as you can see from the images that have been provided, you've got some different things here. You've got a SSGs-enabled tree pit, as you can see. So that would involve using our permavoid, modified polystorm crates to attenuate water and both manage tree roots for trees planted in the hard landscape. Now, we can see that, for example, trees are considered a SSGs component and therefore adoptable, and our polystorm and permavoid crates in various iterations within the guidance are considered adoptable. So we merge these two together, we assume we have an adoptable option. However, maybe as these are put forward, because the guidance is relatively new, there may be arguments and cases to make. However, what we do know, and what is very apparent, is that doing things like optimizing the SSGs functionality of tree pits, or as you can see in the other images, using permavoid to enhance swales and using new technologies and innovations to actually enhance the efficacy of a SSGs component and provide more resilience and more storage. This has proved very popular within the design landscape and also drainage community. So we can't see a problem, but it's well worth having a look back to that design guide, understanding what those cases that you can put forward to stakeholders and specifiers are. Next slide, please. And this I will hand over to Vicky.
Thank you, Charlotte, for that. I think we've now all got a better understanding of SSGs, and then in turn the fact that there's huge opportunity there for us. And I'll go on to the more familiar area of engineered solutions and what those changes are and what it means to us. So we'll look at pipes. All water companies will be required to accept plastic pipe systems, as long as they comply with the required standards such as BSEN 13476-1, WIS 43501, BSEN 13476-2 and -3. Pipes shall also have a BS Kite Mark or equivalent third-party certification. Guess what? We're Polypipe, we're the best. Of course ours does. So a big tick there. As I said at the start, this will help to drive the growth within our sewer range and link nicely with our new sewer campaign that's coming. Helped by some of the new market opportunities in Southern, Thames and Anglian, where previously there's been restrictions. They are now completely removed, and as I say, this is mandatory, they must comply. You can bang on their doors. Minimum cover is changed on pipe as well. Pipes can go shallower than 1.2 underneath highways without concrete protection, as long as calcs are provided. These are the new regulations, not just for plastic pipes, but also other materials, including concrete. And we all know that we demonstrate with 1295 that our products are fit for purpose. So if we are struggling, we can go forward with that. Minimum cover in POS areas has also been increased. And I think that's because previously it was only 600 mil, which isn't a great lot on a landscaped area. It's now been increased to 900 mil. So just worth noting. Flow control devices should, wherever practical, include the features shown within this slide. This isn't a change, it just does give clarity, and they will be accepted by all water companies. Top line. Tanks. This is what we're used to, and it makes up a huge chunk of our Ridgestorm XL turnover year on year. Again, those familiar will know that different water companies request or require different things. And again, SSG standardises this. So key points are these tanks should be online storage. For parallel pipes, so our multi-leg tanks that are used for attenuation, a minimum of one pipe should act as online storage, the remainder offline. An attenuation facility should be used to prevent a buildup of silt and debris, utilising methods such as benching and low flow channel. I think this gives us a huge opportunity within Polypipe and our product offering with regards to the quality of our fabrications on chambers and our low flow channel offering. Access, of course, there should be provision for access for maintenance and inspection and cleaning. Again, this is nothing new, something that we do all the time. It does state within this that the design requirements are where practical. So with site specifics, if there are limitations, we can deviate, but we'll be dealing with that with the developer and the designer right at the start. All this stuff we're really familiar with. Tanks continued. Yes, geocellular is now included within sewer sector guidance. This is quite a big change. The exciting thing being, again, that it expands our range even further into the sector. And we've been offering, obviously, geocellular and polystorm for private solutions on housing estates for some time. And I think it makes up, again, one of our biggest turnovers for the polystorm market. But this makes it even larger with regards to adoptable systems too. Don't panic about the 737, because I have heard a lot of noise, and I created a lot of noise at the start as well. With regards to the structural testing, we are going for this testing, and we will confirm as soon as it's available. But instead focus on the other bit, or other established engineered principles. Verified product performance data should be used to make the assessment. This is what we've been doing for a couple of decades. Serious C680 calcs, and we have a BBA. So we tick this box pending 737. This gives us a real huge opportunity to fight against those pesky people at Carlo and Triton in POS areas where a large pipe solution has not been commercially viable. So when we look at the design for an adoptable geocellular system, we take the same principles that we looked at for tanks using big pipe, which will also be applicable to concrete structures as well. And we apply exactly the same principles to geocellular. Don't be afraid or doubtful of putting our system forward for adoption. They ask for online storage. They ask for inspection and maintenance. This is the stuff we've been doing for years. We've got products and designs within our armoury that we've already been using. All our design guides refer back to Syria, and SSG, as I said, reflects Syria guidance. The big thing for water companies, I believe, will be related to access, maintenance and inspection. So let's put some projects forward and see what comes back and look for that feedback. Let's not be afraid. Let's be brave. Let's be bold. And as I say, let's be brave. Let's be bold. Let's be proud. For years, we've had the largest adoptable product solutions range in the whole of the UK. With our sewer and our XL system, we could supply from 150 to 3 metre diameter. Nobody else in the marketplace can do that. That meant we can offer, and still can offer, multi-leg tanks, roads and sewer pipelines, manholes and flow control chambers. But it just got even bigger. We can offer everything. We've got even more in our armoury. We've got polystorm, we've got permavoid, we've got green infrastructure. There is nobody else in the market that can rival the solutions that we can put forward. So with no further ado, following on from the excitement of our massive opportunity, I'll pass you over to my colleague, Charlotte.
Thank you. Things just got big. Things just got really real. So, Polypipe Civils and Green Urbanisation, we've had the name change. Let's take it seriously and piggyback off everything that Vicky and myself have been talking about today. And if you go back to the design guide, third time we're going to say it, but it has to be. No, you don't have to go back a slide, but you know the concept is there. And in that guide, we talk about making space for water, surface water management, quality, amenity, urban farming, placemaking, biodiversity, creating assets. This is the stuff that is now in pretty much every local authority's planning policy frameworks. So this means that the people you're dealing with, contractors, subcontractors, key accounts, the developers who are putting these developments forward for planning will have to be compliant with a whole raft of legislation and frameworks, which just make our solutions much more attractive because it's a holistic approach. They can come to us for their green infrastructure solutions, as well as their water management and more conventional solutions. And this means that we can deal with blue and green roofs, podiums, work that we're doing at grade, and we can use this to interlink our sewer ranges, our pipes, our geocellular and our source control cells all in one neat package. Next slide, please, Vic. So this means that when we talk to everybody, we can span that range of adoptable and non-adoptable solutions. We can talk about passive irrigation. Do we want to extend the lifespan of our green infrastructure on a site? Yes, we do. Do we want to integrate bioretention, urban tree planting? Do we want to be looking at blue-green roofs and enhanced SUDS and rainwater harvesting? But more than that, we can offer from January more smart technologies that we can incorporate into our SUDS features. So not only do we offer pretty much everything that's in the Syria guidance, we've got a new smart system called PolySync, which will now enable us to connect and make those SUDs smart, which means we can monitor water content inside our tree pits, our rain gardens, all our SUDS components. We can link this to live meteorological data and regulate how much water is sat within our permavoid units. That's a very potted summary, but I think it's worth us having that conversation and thinking about how smart technologies are going to be paving the way for future innovations and being utilised on sites. Slide, please. So the how. Well, it's not just residential schemes when you're scoping for opportunities. So we've talked to you a lot today about sort of how things will apply on residential schemes, but there's a whole world out there that looks at water treatment along urban roads, protection of trees, hard landscape surfaces, smart reuse, as we've talked about, lots of local authorities asking contractors and ground workers to be thinking about biodiversity net gain, cycle paths, post-COVID opportunities around managing water in new cycle networks. Next slide, please. And public open spaces and thinking about sports and recreation. We have a great relationship with the Sports Turf Research Institute, and I was on the phone recently to Blackpool Council, and they're designing their own SUD sports pitches on a couple of large developments and schemes. And I think a lot of the time people within local authorities are seeing the possibilities that are out there. They're looking at what's not being done by the private sector in some instances, and they're starting to get really savvy about what's possible, what is the art of the possible. So next slide, please. And we need to think about the lost opportunity that we often see, the tragic ineptitude of those that just build structures and put bitumen horrible roofs that don't give any opportunity anywhere. But if we use our permavoid under a rooftop, the possibilities literally become endless. We can manage water. It's an opportunity for placemaking and amenity. And it also, through the use of the permavoid units and stored water for our green infrastructure to take advantage of at rooftop level, we can increase biodiversity, add to food security by incorporating some urban farming, and we can mitigate against the urban heat island effect. And we're doing a lot of work in terms of European and innovation projects. We're doing some work with United Utilities at the moment in Greater Manchester, and we're actually working with them to look at how we can financially incentivise stakeholders to incorporate source control SUDs at rooftop level and receive a rebate from the water company for keeping that water out of the combined sewer network. And we've also done this work with tree pits as well. We've done a few projects up at the University of Salford looking at how tree pits as a SUDS feature can hold water back from combined sewer networks. Next slide, please. That leads me neatly onto trees again. So the idea that these can also be a feature to soak up water, and the fact that utilities companies should see this as a golden opportunity to retrofit resilience. And that's really, really, really important. Next slide, please. So our SUDS tree pit ranges, and do come and talk to us, come and talk to the specification team about this opportunity to incorporate treatment, to utilise permavoid in two regards. It's synthesising two needs. When we put a tree in a hard landscape, we've got two jobs to do. We've got to make sure that the soil, the environment for the tree in the hard landscape is going to be conducive to its continued maturity, because any local authority will kick out an application where consideration for the tree has been overlooked. And we need to protect the roots. So that's priority number one. But then we also need to be clever, and we also need to think, well, this isn't just a space under the ground for the tree. This tree likes water, and it likes water in a regulated amount, but it can also become a SUDS feature. So if you look at our standard details here, we've got a mix of the green, which is polystorm, and the blues, which are permavoid cells on the slides. And we use our capacity to both protect roots and to also use that lower layer of permavoid to store water and use passive irrigation to allow that water to wick up back towards the root ball to enable us to create a multifunctional engineered green asset that's doing more for less. Next slide, please. And trees can go anywhere and be an integrated component of the SUDS network. Pipe and trees are not mutually exclusive, people. We can have both. And I will hand back over to the amazing Vicky Woodhouse to help me conclude.
Thank you again, Charlotte. So to conclude, I think you'll all agree that the new sewer sector guidance gives us a mountain of opportunity in what is our biggest turnover sector. You'll have all seen and used these images previously, and they are so relevant to all of this. One of the biggest assets that Polypipe Civils and GU has, apart from our product and solutions offering, is the service and support that we give. And it's you guys, us guys, on the front line. We've always encouraged our customers to come to us early so that we can collaborate and help to bring forward the best project solution. People will need our help, and we are more than equipped to give it and then turn their pain point into a huge opportunity for all of us. So let's get out there and start talking to people. Let's start helping them out. On every screen, there's going to be an opportunity for Polypipe, whether that be SUDS, hard solutions, or a mixture of both. It's all of our responsibility to push this forward with developers, designers, and installers on schemes. There's not one person or one team that's going out there with a magic cape or a silver bullet. Let's start leading with site-specific project solutions, whether that be generating or overturning a spec, and that'll give us the real growth that we need. We need to use the powerful force of us all, feed back our findings back to our line managers and our colleagues, and then take that learning and take it all the way. Thanks ever so much.